So you've got another easy foundation paper piecing Dear Jane quilt block. This one is almost like a bordered 9 patch. So you can see that it's, yeah, you've got lines on it like a tic-tac-toe board. This one is I03. And the pattern, again, I'm going to use Susan Gatewood's pattern, which I will leave in a link down below. We've got 3 sections that we've got to do. Mine are going to be violet for the squares and cream for the sashing. So I've got some cream scraps that I'm going to use. And I'm going to cut some squares. These are about 1 1/4 inch square. So if I cut 2 inch squares out of the other scraps that I've got, they'll be big enough for these 9 squares that I've got in this. So as per usual, first thing, chop it out roughly, making sure that we've got slightly more than 1/4 inch all the way around. And then we need to fold each of these using some card or a postcard, something that's nice and stiff. I'm going to fold on the lines so that when we're looking at it from the reverse, we can actually see where the pieces go. So there's my first piece prepared. I'm going to do the other 2 just the same. Okay, so I've got my purple squares, and each of these tell me that piece number 1 is in the middle. So for all 3 of these, I'm going to position a purple square on the back in the very middle of the strip. And the pin, as always, goes on the front. Got plenty of room from the scraps that I cut, where I just cut it roughly, so I shouldn't have to waste too much time repositioning these. There we go. There. Now for each of these, I think they're the same width, so, well, they must be the same width because they've got squares. So I'm going to cut 6 pieces of my cream that are about that wide. Gives me to go across that shape with 1/4 inch to spare. And that one, of course, I'm going to tuck the sides off anyway because this piece has got a border on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's going to go for my sides. When I cut the narrow strips out of this, there'll be chunks left over that are big enough to use in another thing, so they're actually going to go back into my scrap box. So, B2, I'm going to fold on the line between B1 and B2. And we cut to 1/4 inch. There we go. I'm going to take one of our squares, position it on the back in the right place, and then we're going to pin it on the front, and when we do, we can remove that first pin that we put in. Ooh, that was a really rusty one. Let's get rid of that. Okay. the joys of living in what is at the moment a building site, is occasionally you have stuff that's ruined. There we go. So I'm going to do the same thing for this piece, and then I'll be able to take all three to the same machine at the same time. So here are my three prepared pieces. I'm going to sew them right sides up so that I can sew on the lines. This one has pieces on the sides. What I'll do is I'll start about 1/4 inch into this piece and sew all the way across, and then finish 1/4 inch this way. I'm going to need to tear the pattern when I come to put the pieces on the sides, but it means that I know that piece is well and truly secure. On these ones, where we don't actually have anything that goes on the sides afterwards, they're just a strip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew from from one end to the other, and I can actually chain piece these. It won't matter that I've gone off the edge when we come to trim them. We'll just trim off the extra threads. So here we go with the first one. We're going to put the line in the middle of the foot. Yep, and then push your needle, and then nice and slow. Oh, wrong line. That's what comes of actually concentrating on the filming and not on the sewing. There we go. Put it down. This time we sew on the right line, without wondering why it's past the piece of fabric. This one, make sure I get the right line. My needle is exactly on the line. This is of course why I put the pin on the top, because it means I can take the pin out if I want to. That's those two done. This one. You see on that one that I've started a little bit into the seam allowance here and a little bit into the seam allowance here. That'll be absolutely fine. What I have to do now is hold it over to the ironing board and press those upwards, and once they've been pressed, then we'll head back to the cutting board to trim them and then put the next piece in position. And that's it, it's the same sequence. So we sew, we press, we trim, we position the next piece, we sew, we press, we trim. If you can do that, you can do any paper piecing. There we go. Back 1, 2, 3. So you're back at the cutting board in a moment. I'm not bothered about that one. I'm annoyed about that one. But hey, all it's wasted is thread, because that is going to flip up that way. And when it's on the right side, you'll never know I made a mistake. Okay, so they've been pressed nice and flat. So as I said before, we're going to go to the next line up. No, we're not. We're going to go to the next line down, because number 3 is this one. It's the other strip. Press it back. 1/4 inch. Trim to 1/4 inch. Grab a square. The biggest one, it's not the smallest one. the smallest one for this one because we've got a seam allowance on this one. That one. That one. Grab a square, position it in the right place, turn it to the front, whack in a pin, put that side, go on to the next one, and we'll be able to take all three to the sewing machine together. So there's the next line, number 3. Trim. Grab a square. And yeah, I've got more than 1/4 of an inch either side of that one. So position him. Grab a pin. To the next one. So this is the next set of pieces. I'm going to continue with sewing, pressing, bringing it back here, trimming up, position the next piece, following the order that is written on the printed pieces. It is same old, which would be incredibly boring for you guys. So I'm going to meet you back here when I am ready to put the 3 sections together. See you in a minute. Magic of video. I'm just about to add the side pieces to this one. Now you can see where I've sewn past the edge. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to tear this slightly. I'm going to concentrate on tearing the paper rather than pulling the stitches out. Just to fold that back and try and get it flat. There we go. So rip the paper, up the stitches, because the paper's going to get thrown away in the end anyway. There we go. Now it's lying nice and flat, so we should be able to trim as normal. Which will allow me to add the 2 side pieces, and then all I've got to do is sew them together. Okay, so there's all 3 of my sections. What I'm going to do is turn them over and trim them before I sew them together. I've simply got to put the 1/4 of an inch line on the printed line of the paper, like so. And give it a trim around all 4 sides and repeat that for all 3 pieces, and then we'll be ready to sew the thing together. So here we are, section, that's the middle section, and then section for one side, section for the other. All I've got to do is sew these together and try and get the lines straight. Have some fun in that. So there we go. Oops. Got some extra fluff on there for some reason. There we go. Looking down to see that the things are lining up, and they're not too bad. So I'm just going to take that over to the machine now. So that first one, and then I'll put the second one on. So there we go, that's the first one. And I'm quite happy with how straight that is. So second one goes on. Just going to look down. Make sure that that is lined up, which I think it is. Looking down here to see whether that's lined up. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press that flat, and I'm going to turn it over this way, and I'm going to do some stay stitching all the way around, so that will help it stay together, because we've got quite a lot of seams here and here that end up at the edges. I don't want those to pull apart when I start taking the paper off. Then we'll be finished. So all pressed flat, just the stay stitching to do. So there we are, block I03. We've got the stay stitching to hold it together, and we've got some nice straight lines. 5 inches unfinished, 4.5 inches finished. On to the next one.